During the Christmas holiday, I prepared a lavish dinner for my family. Both of my daughters were home from school and my husband Jacob had returned to our warm, cozy house. We all sat around the table, laughter bubbling as we shared plates piled high with holiday dishes. Just as I stood up to clear the plates, Jacob said, "Time for gifts." He pulled out his phone and as he shifted in his seat, a $50 bill peeked out from his pocket. Jacob handed it to me. "Here," he said. "Your gift. You're always going on about being broke." His words struck a nerve. I took the money anyway, even though it barely scratched the $300 I'd spent on this one meal. Then out of nowhere, Claire, my eldest, smacked her hand down on the table. "Mom is so annoying, always begging Dad for money." The bill slipped from my hand and fluttered to the floor. I froze. "What did you just say?" Lily chimed in right after. "Claire's right. All Mom does is spend money. She has no clue how hard Dad works." I stared at them wide-eyed, stunned that words like these could come from their mouths. Over the years, I'd poured my heart and soul into raising them, giving them everything I believed was the best. I never claimed to be a perfect mother, but I certainly wasn't a bad one. When they were little, they clung to me like I was their whole world. Claire used to whisper sweetly, "I love Mommy the most. When I grow up, I'm going to buy you a big house." And Lily had once declared with shining eyes, "My mom is the best in the world. No one cooks better than her." Back then my heart brimmed with joy. I gave and gave without ever expecting anything in return. No matter how tired or worn down I was, I gave everything I had, willingly. But now all I saw in their eyes was resentment, like I had somehow turned into the villain of their story. In that moment, it felt like a knife sliced through my chest. The pain was sharp and unrelenting. I pointed at them, my voice shaking. "Who told you I don't make any money?" Claire answered without hesitation. "Then where is it? If you earn anything, how come you've never bought us a single gift?" Lily chimed in, her tone cold. "You stay home all day doing nothing. How would you be making money?" Claire was in high school now and Lily was in middle school. They were old enough to know better. So where was this bitterness coming from? Could they really not see the effort I'd put in all these years? I turned to Jacob. "Was it you? Did you tell them I just sit at home and play all day?" Jacob looked at the girls and said mildly, "Don't talk like that about your mother. She's not just playing, she also cooks and does the laundry." Claire rolled her eyes. "So what? Is cooking and laundry harder than what Dad does at work?" Then Jacob smiled at me like he was humoring a child. "Emily, even our girls understand how hard I work. Maybe you should try being a little more understanding, like them." Lily added, "Dad drives all day and comes home sore. Mom doesn't even give him a massage. She doesn't care at all." She hopped up and ran to Jacob, kneeling beside him. "Let me rub your legs, Daddy." Claire followed. "I'll do your shoulders." Margaret, my mother-in-law, chuckled. "What sweet girls. They really know how to take care of their father." Jacob looked pleased. "Since you've both been so thoughtful, there's a little something extra besides your gifts. $100 each." The girls squealed with delight as he handed them the cash. "Thanks, Daddy." Jacob then handed his mother $150. He bent down, picked up the $50 that had fallen earlier and handed it to Margaret. "You've done so much for me. Raised me, helped with the girls, never had a day of rest. This is the least I can do." Margaret took the money, eyes damp with emotion. "Having you all is the greatest gift of all." The girls beamed. "Grandma, you're the best." Then they all turned to me, every single pair of eyes. Claire asked, "Aren't you getting us anything, Mom?" Margaret laughed. "Emily doesn't have money to buy gifts." Lily made a face. "Didn't you ask Dad for a bunch of money? And still couldn't be bothered to get us anything? So stingy." Margaret smirked. "Who knows where your mom's money ends up anyway?" Jacob's parents had separated long ago. I'd barely lived with Margaret. Our interactions were polite, distant. It wasn't until this summer that she moved in with us, after her second husband passed and her stepchildren abandoned her. Jacob took her in when she had nowhere else to go. Then not long after, his father fell seriously ill. I spent 2 months at the hospital caring for him, until the day we lost him. During that same summer, Margaret managed the girls' meals and daily life. To my surprise, the time they spent together actually brought them closer. Claire said, "I bet Mom's just saving up for more clothes and shoes." Lily snapped, "So selfish. She doesn't act like a mom at all." The pain in my chest faded into a numb, hollow silence. This was the family I had given everything to. These were the children I had cared for with every ounce of my being. And now, because I didn't hand them a wrapped gift tonight, they were resentful. Margaret and Jacob looked at me like I didn't even belong at this table. It didn't matter that I'd spent all afternoon cooking that elaborate meal. It didn't matter that I'd bought each of them new clothes for the holidays. It didn't matter that I had for years paid for their tuition, wired money for their living expenses, and cooked every meal with care. In their eyes, I was still worthless. Their judgment of me was simple: selfish, stingy, inadequate. How did I end up being the villain in my own home? For the past 10 years, Jacob has contributed almost nothing to our household finances. Every cent of tuition and living expenses for our daughters came from my own hard work. Their clothes? All bought by me. Groceries, cooking oil, rice, pasta, fresh produce, and meat. All the daily necessities fell squarely on my shoulders. In effect, I was single-handedly supporting a household of 5. The financial burden was suffocating. I would stretch every dollar until it nearly tore in half. I hadn't bought myself a decent piece of clothing in years, not unless absolutely necessary. The new coat hanging in my closet? Reserved strictly for special occasions. But when I shopped for my daughters, I never once looked at the price tag. In my heart, young girls deserve to look pretty and feel confident. Most of my daily clothes were their hand-me-downs. When a new semester rolled around, that was always the tightest time of year. And when the money just didn't stretch far enough, I had no choice but to ask Jacob for help. He'd hand me 50, maybe 100, always with a groan. "You're always whining about being broke." God, it's exhausting. Doesn't matter how much I make, you'll still act like it's never enough. I snapped back. If you could give me just $1,000 a month, I wouldn't have to ask. $1,000. Maybe nothing to some people, but to me it could be the difference between drowning and staying afloat. Jacob exploded. "All you ever do is ask for money. Do you have any idea how hard it is to earn a living?" I answered coldly, "And yet I haven't seen a penny of it." That sent him over the edge. "You ungrateful woman. I gave you $10 last month." I laughed, bitter and sharp. $10. That barely buys a coffee." He barked back. "So I didn't give you nothing, right? Then how dare you say I don't help? Look at you now, screeching like some lunatic." I shot back. "And you? Have you looked in the mirror? Acting like a damn freeloader. Won't spend a cent on me but expects to eat like a king." Every meal he demanded meat on the table. "Even if I don't eat it," he'd say, "I need to see meat or I lose my appetite." These arguments never went anywhere. In the end, I was left with 2 labels: ungrateful and hysterical. I was emotionally drained. Exhausted, down to the bone. But I kept enduring. For the sake of my daughters. I feared what might happen to them if left in the hands of step-parents who didn't love them the same. Sometimes I'd find myself thinking back to the early days, when Jacob was kind. We used to work the same shifts and come home to cook dinner together. When I was pregnant, he treated me like glass. The day I went into labor, he cried, real tears, the kind that shake a man. He'd invited his mother to come help out. But she refused, said she was too busy taking her stepkids to school. After Jacob's parents divorced, his father, Frank, raised him alone. His mother had remarried and poured herself into raising her new husband's 3 kids, even helping raise their grandkids. Even after I gave birth to 2 daughters, she never once came to visit. It was Frank who came from out of town to care for me, to cook for me. And eventually he just stayed. Jacob and I worked full-time while Frank cooked and cared for the girls. We weren't wealthy, not by a long shot. But our home was filled with warmth and peace. I was deeply grateful to Frank. So when he fell ill, I never left his side. I stayed with him until the very end, until I arranged his funeral with my own hands. Jacob's shift began 5 years ago, with a car. He used to grumble constantly about how working for someone else barely paid the bills, how it chipped away at his pride. If I had my own car, he'd say, I could drive people around, make decent money, support the whole family by myself. Then you wouldn't have to be out on those construction sites every day, freezing and sweating. I thought it was just idle talk. But then one day he actually did it, bought a car with a $50,000 loan. After that, he was up before dawn and came home long after dark, driving passengers across the city. He was exhausted, physically wrecked. Most nights he'd come in, collapse on the couch and barely move. Watching him like that twisted my heart. I brewed coffee for him, massaged his shoulders, reminded myself, we're in this together. He was doing it for our future, to make things better for all of us. I couldn't ease his workload, but I tried to take care of everything else, hoping we'd pay off the loan sooner. It wasn't long before he realized the driving gig didn't bring in nearly what he'd imagined. By the end of each month, between the loan payments, gas and insurance, there was barely anything left. He sighed. Complained. Every day was a new lament. I felt helpless. He clearly couldn't carry the weight of the household. So I went back to working construction. From that point on, Jacob stopped paying attention to family expenses altogether. I took on everything: bills, food, the girls' needs. I was drowning. So I clung to hope. Maybe he'd eventually contribute again. But hope turned into disappointment. The deeper I hoped, the harder I fell. The only time Jacob ever seemed generous was at Christmas. He'd buy expensive gifts for the girls and for his mother and father. The three of them would light up with joy, laughing like kids in a toy store. I, on the other hand, was always left out. One year I joked, everyone got something. Why not me? Jacob held out his hand. You're the lady of the house. The boss. You're supposed to be the one handing out gifts. I let it slide then. After all, the gifts he gave the kids, they were really from me too, right? What was the point in nitpicking? But now the memory felt bitterly ironic. I was the so-called lady of the house, the one who kept it running with my blood and sweat, and somehow I'd become the villain. Jacob glanced at the cluttered table and said, "It's fine if you don't have money, but could you at least clean up? It's a mess in here." I almost laughed. How dare he criticize me? Why was I still expected to serve a family that didn't even care? Back when I was swamped with work, I once asked Claire to do the dishes. Jacob had responded, "Why should she wash dishes? One broken plate could cost us. Just wait till you're home." So I asked, "Why don't you do it?" He stretched out on the couch and yawned. "I'm tired. I don't feel like doing chores." And I wasn't? Was I not just as bone tired? Did I ask for this? Did I sign up to be the one who always cleaned up, always gave in, always took care of everything? Claire piped up, "Dad's calling you. Why aren't you doing what he asked?" Margaret stood up. "I'll do it. I can't just be the guest who eats for free." Lily jumped up, panicked. "No, Grandma, sit down. You're our favorite person. You shouldn't be doing that." Claire nodded. "Exactly. Mom, go do the dishes." Jacob glared at me. "Didn't you hear? What, you want my mom to wash dishes? Look at your daughters. How do you expect them to be decent people with a mother like you as their example?" That was it. The fury burst out of me like a fireball. My head throbbed, my ears rang. I stood up, grabbed the stack of dishes and with one sweeping motion hurled them to the ground. The crash was deafening. China shattered across the kitchen floor. Both of my daughters gasped and jumped back in shock. Margaret stood frozen for a second, then snapped out of it and shouted, "Emily! Are you out of your damn mind?" Jacob rushed toward me, eyes wild, fists clenched. "You crazy bitch! What the hell are you trying to do?" I flipped the table and pointed straight at him, roaring, "Jacob! You lay one finger on me and I swear I'll have you thrown in jail." He stopped cold. We'd had our share of arguments over the years, usually about money. He'd shoved me once or twice when things got heated, but he had never actually hit me. And now he really was about to. I stared at him, stunned. This was the man I once loved. The same Jacob who used to hold my hand on cold mornings and kiss my shoulder while I cooked. The Jacob who paced nervously outside the delivery room, crying when our daughter was born. Now he looked nothing like that man. Coarse, wrinkled, bloated. 10 years had taken the soul right out of him, and left something unrecognizable in its place. Margaret's voice cut through the room like a blade. "You hateful woman. My son works day and night to support this family. He's out before sunrise, still driving when the rest of the world is asleep. He barely gets a few days at home each month. And you want him in jail? What happens to me if he's locked up? I'm old, I could drop dead any day and I don't even care anymore. But what about my granddaughters? Do you want them to grow up fatherless, to be ridiculed by everyone they meet?" It was straight up manipulation. Her son could assault me, but if I called the police, I was the monster. I glared and said coldly, "No wonder every man you married left you. With your class, you could get married 10 more times and still end up alone." Jacob exploded. "What the hell are you saying about my mom? She's a better person than you'll ever be. I laughed. Oh, she's classy all right. Wherever she goes, she spreads poison like it's perfume. She thrives on drama, can't stand peace unless she's the one tearing it apart. That's what you call classy? You're pathetic, Jacob. You didn't inherit a single good thing from your father. Instead, you absorbed every toxic trait your mother ever had. And I meant it. I had long since seen through the both of them. Margaret shrieked, clawing for control. Jacob, are you not hearing her? She just called you a bastard. She called me a whore. I've been a clean, decent woman my whole life. I've never, ever, done anything like that. She just accused me of sleeping around. I can't take this, I'd rather die. With that, she stormed out the door, clutching the railing and screaming that she was going to jump. Our house was only 2 stories high. A fall wouldn't kill her, but it'd definitely hurt. Except Margaret hated pain more than anything. At the hospital, she once screamed bloody murder before the nurse even finished mixing the injection. You're not even holding the needle yet, the doctor had exclaimed. You scared the hell out of me. She was a drama queen, not a daredevil. But it worked, Jacob panicked. He ran to her, grabbing her arms and pulling her back. Mom, stop. Please don't. Then he turned to me, furious. Emily, apologize to my mother right now. I didn't flinch. Apologize? For what? For telling the truth. She has the audacity to call herself clean? She cheated on your dad and got thrown out. Clean women don't cheat twice in 2 marriages and get dumped both times. Margaret had returned to us claiming she was widowed and kicked out by her stepchildren. She cried so convincingly we believed every word. But the truth was her second husband was still alive, paralyzed, not dead. She had abandoned him, ignored his needs, and openly flirted with another elderly man. When her stepkids found out, they were so disgusted they kicked her out. Jacob shouted, "You better shut your mouth." Enraged that I was airing his mother's dirty laundry, he raised his hand to strike me. But I moved quickly, grabbed Margaret and pulled her in front of me. His hand landed squarely across her cheek. A hard, echoing slap. I stared him down. What's the matter? Ashamed of your mother now? No matter how disgraceful she is, she's still your mother. How dare you hit her? This time Margaret cried for real. Not her usual wailing act, real tears. Jacob looked horrified. Mom, I didn't mean to, I wasn't trying to hit you. Margaret sobbed. If you don't even have the guts to hit that woman, don't ever call me your mother again. Jacob lost it. He charged at me, seething with rage. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Hello, police. I need help. That stopped him in his tracks. He froze, trembling with panic. Don't call the cops. Emily, please. How would that make me look? And that was Jacob's soft spot. Reputation. He lived for appearances. Always the first to pick up the check at dinners. Once at a fast food joint, someone called him Mr. Davis with mock respect. He puffed up and paid everyone's bill on the spot. He loved to brag. Money? Just paper. I don't sweat that stuff. To outsiders he played the rich, generous alpha male. But when I once asked him for $20 to buy our daughter a textbook, he lost his damn mind. Years of being coddled and flattered by friends had made him believe his own hype. To him, image was everything. If I called the police and he was arrested for domestic abuse, it'd be a public humiliation. But here's the thing, I didn't want him anymore. So why should I care about saving his face? Jacob panicked when he saw me continuing to dial, practically begging. Emily, please, I'm begging you. If you won't spare me some face, at least think about my mom and our 2 daughters. Claire rushed over, furious, knocking my phone from my hand. Mom, what the hell are you doing? Lily quickly followed. Mom, Dad didn't do anything. Don't make this worse. Looking at my 2 daughters who were now taller than me, I felt a chill run through my heart. I often wondered if it was my fault, whether I had been too caught up in working, too distracted by survival to properly raise them. But if I didn't work myself to the bone, how would we survive? How would they have a future? I wanted to make money, but I had no time to be with them. If I didn't earn, how could I take care of their needs? But did they ever stop to consider that for me? Now they stood there, angry with me, forgetting how many times they had come to me for help. I had given everything I had for over a decade, but the return I got was less than the handful of gifts Jacob gave them every year. What was the point of raising them anymore? It was clear, they no longer cared about me like they once had. My sacrifices meant nothing to them. I smiled bitterly and said, trying to sound cold, "We don't have any relationship left. What I do from now on is my business." Claire shot back, "That's ridiculous. You're my mom, how can we have no relationship?" My face darkened immediately and I spoke in a low, cold voice, "Don't ever call me mom again. I'm cutting ties with you." The two girls fell silent. Jacob roared, "You really want to cut ties with us?" I gave him a challenging look. "Go ahead, divorce me. Do you dare?" He froze, mumbling under his breath, "Divorce? At my age? Who wants to be a joke?" In his eyes, divorce, domestic violence, even jail time, these were all things that would make him look bad. So he wouldn't agree to it. I said, "So you're too scared? I'll file for a lawsuit." I walked into the room, grabbed my documents and headed straight for the door. As I stepped outside, I realized it was pouring rain. I stood beneath the eaves, feeling lost. Where was I supposed to go? Upstairs, I heard Claire's voice. "Where'd she go?" Jacob replied, "She's probably hiding outside crying. Don't worry, she'll come back and wash the dishes." Margaret's laugh echoed through the house. "Of course. She's got nowhere else to go. Her parents don't care about her either. She'll cry for a bit, then come back to clean up." Lily muttered, "Mom's pathetic. Even her own parents don't like her." They knew exactly how to twist the knife, how to control my emotions. I remembered the times when I'd been so angry I cried. I'd run outside to let it all out, but in the end I always came back to clean up. Despite working until late, the house was always a mess. Dishes piled high on the table, trash scattered on the floor. If I didn't do it, no one else would. Jacob, smug as always, said, "You think crying is going to get you out of housework? You just want to dump it all on me. Well, I'm not doing it. When you're done, I'll handle it." In his mind, all the chores were always my responsibility. He was too tired to do them. The girls were too young. His mother was too old. And I, of course, was the only one who had to shoulder it all. Margaret had spent her life as a housewife, never earned a dime, but in Jacob's eyes she was an icon. He even gave her spending money sometimes. Meanwhile, I worked full-time and handled all the housework, but to him I was worth nothing. How was it fair? How could he hold such double standards? But Margaret was right about one thing. My parents never valued me. But was that really my fault? I was born into a biased family where all the resources went to my brother. Growing up, he was treated like the golden child, always getting the best of everything. He never had to lift a finger around the house. I, on the other hand, was burdened with endless chores. I was always the last one to sit down for dinner, watching as the food was gobbled up by everyone else. I had never owned a brand new outfit. Everything I wore was either my parents' old clothes or hand-me-downs from my brother. Whenever I made a mistake, my parents would berate me. I struggled and fought to grow up, only to be drained by them. Later, when I started dating Jacob, he wanted to meet my parents to discuss our future. I told him everything about how they treated me. He was furious. Why stay in touch with parents like that? After that, I distanced myself from them. They cursed me, even forced me to take in my nephew, claiming my brother and his wife were too busy. Meanwhile, they were both working overtime, hoping to buy a house for my nephew. I despised my family and the way they treated me. Eventually, I kicked them out of my life without a second thought. This was one of the reasons I never brought up divorce with Jacob in the last 10 years. On one hand, I would end up homeless. On the other, Jacob had once given me shelter when I was desperate. Even though our house was old and small, Jacob and his father's care for me made it feel like a true home. Together, we worked to build this 2-story house. I considered it my only place of belonging, and I was willing to give everything for it. But now Margaret and the girls turned all my hard work into accusations, blaming me for everything. My heart had turned to ice. This time, even if I had to live on the streets, I would never go back to that house. I had no feelings left for Jacob and Margaret. This time, the blow from my 2 daughters was simply too much to bear. For 10 years, I had silently endured, all for their future. I had borne Jacob's irresponsibility and Margaret's cruelty. I tried to create an illusion of a happy, harmonious family for the girls. I didn't want them to feel the coldness of a home filled with constant arguments. But in the end, they ignored all the sacrifices I made, focusing only on the efforts of their father and grandmother. Now they had made me completely lose faith in this family. The more I thought about it, the heavier my heart became, and I couldn't stop the tears from falling. In that moment, I felt like a stray dog, abandoned and helpless, my soul crushed under the weight of it all. I was about to push open the door and leave, when Jacob's footsteps suddenly sounded behind me. He grabbed my arm and said, "It's pouring outside. Where do you think you're going?" "I'll go instead. I don't want people saying I kicked you out." At that moment he still cared more about his own image than anything else. But I was too weak to pull away, so I let him push me back inside. Then he walked out. My 2 daughters immediately ran over, one on each side, wrapping their arms around his, crying out, "Dad, please don't leave. The rain's so heavy, where are you going?" Margaret stood behind me, her face showing a sense of satisfaction. These girls really care about Jacob. He's definitely not spoiling them for nothing. I turned around and smiled coldly. "Oh yes, you've spoiled them. But I've been the one doing all the work. You can love them all you want." I turned and walked upstairs, the house as messy as ever, just as I had expected. No one had bothered to clean. It felt like they were gambling with me, seeing who could be colder-hearted. Tonight I would be the one who was ruthless. I entered my bedroom and slammed the door, locking it behind me. Later Lily knocked. "Dinner's ready." I didn't respond. When it was time to sleep, Jacob knocked again. "Open the door. I'm going to bed." I still didn't answer. There were plenty of rooms upstairs and downstairs. He had other places to sleep. In the middle of the night, hunger gnawed at me. I got up and went to the kitchen. The kitchen was a mess, pots, pans, and dishes piled everywhere. The stove was covered in grime and there was water spilled on the floor. If it were any other time, I would have cleaned it all up. But tonight I was determined to not compromise. I grabbed a box of cereal, poured water over it to fill my stomach, and went back to my room to lie down. But I didn't really sleep. I thought about how every corner of this house had been built with my effort. If I chose divorce, it would mean letting go of this house, letting go of everything I had built. A wave of resentment rose in me. But if I stayed, I would continue to be nothing more than a maid for this family. Their attitude towards me had become more and more shameless. I tossed and turned all night, barely falling asleep just before dawn. But I was jolted awake by Lily's crying. "Where's my cereal? Who ate my cereal? Who took it? Speak up." My blood boiled. This was a direct accusation. How could I not respond? I burst out of my room, voice thundering, "What's all this noise?" "I ate it. What's the problem?" Lily immediately started crying, tears streaming down her face. "That was mine." I snapped. "Where did you get the money for it? Who gave you the money?" She mumbled quietly, "You gave it to me. Yesterday when she came home hungry, I told her to wait for dinner to be ready. She cried, 'I'm hungry,' and I gave her $10. I didn't know how many packages she bought, but I'd only seen one. I ate it without thinking. I had no idea she'd make such a fuss about it." Margaret chimed in, "Emily, you need to clarify this. The money you gave Lily was hers and the cereal she bought belongs to her. Why did you eat it?" Lily, now emboldened, added, "Exactly. You didn't even tell me. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I ate one damn box of cereal and now I'm a criminal? Are you all ganging up on me? I can't take this anymore." At that moment Jacob walked in holding a piece of meat. "What's all the shouting about?" Margaret and Lily both started complaining about me. Jacob shook his head. "It's just a box of cereal. Why are you making such a big deal out of it?" He reached into his pocket, pulled out a $50 bill and handed it to Lily. "Go buy $50 worth of cereal so your mom can fill her stomach." I felt Jacob pulling further and further away from me, completely missing the point of the situation. Lily excitedly took the money and ran out. Just as I was about to turn back to my room, Jacob called, "Emily, make sure to cook some steaks tonight." I asked, "What about the meat?" He replied, "Of course you'll buy it." He smiled smugly. I sneered coldly. "Have you given me any money for that? Why should I go buy it?" He shrugged. "We're married. No need to make a big deal out of it." He leaned in, pushing me lightly. "Go buy it and stop complaining." I walked out the door without a word, heading straight to the store. An hour later, Jacob sent a message. "Where are you? It's 6 p.m. and you still haven't come back to cook." I didn't reply. He called again. I didn't pick up. That night I stayed at a motel. If the day before I had hesitated about whether to divorce, now my decision was firm. This marriage, it had to end. I couldn't bear to live like this any longer. The next morning I woke up feeling dizzy with a stuffy nose, caught a cold. But at least I no longer had to worry about meals for the family. I didn't need to wake up early to cook for everyone or rush to prepare lunch after breakfast. Even when I had a bad cold in the past, these daily chores were still my responsibility. Now I could finally sleep in without a care. The phone rang, interrupting my peaceful sleep. It was Jacob calling. I chose not to answer. Then Claire called too. I picked up. "What's up?" My nose was stuffy and Claire must have noticed, but she didn't ask how I was. Instead she simply asked, "You're not coming back? What are we having for lunch?" I replied, "Whatever you guys want." Jacob's voice came through, angry as ever. "Tell your mom if she wants to come back she'd better get in here and cook. If not, don't bother coming back." I hung up without a second thought. A whole week went by without a single call on my phone. As my cold started to get better, the end of the holiday brought an uneasy feeling in my chest. Claire was about to return to school, and I usually gave her some money for living expenses around this time. This week it would probably be her dad handing her the money. How was she preparing her luggage? Claire was always procrastinating, and if I didn't remind her she'd drag her feet until dark, and going to school late wasn't safe. Lily, too, had been distracted with her homework. I wasn't home these past few days and I couldn't stop thinking about whether she'd finish her assignments. I couldn't help but want to go back and check on them. But when I saw that I hadn't received any messages, my anger flared up again. In the end I still didn't go back. As evening approached, Claire called again, her tone matter-of-fact. "Mom, hurry up and transfer the living expenses." I felt a pang of frustration. "I don't have a job, I don't have any income. How could I have money to give you? Your dad makes all that money. Why don't you ask him?" Her response came quickly. "Dad's money is tied up in loan payments." "Loan payments?" I asked, confused. "I don't know, just send it quickly, I need to catch a bus." I said firmly, "I really don't have the money to give you." She snapped, "Then go work. You can't keep relying on Dad all the time." The fire in my chest exploded. "I've spent 6 years raising you with your father, then 10 more years doing it alone. Isn't that enough? From now on let your dad take care of you. I don't owe you anything." I hung up, the anger still simmering. Jacob called right after. "Emily, you've been out for so long. Don't you think it's time to stop? Why are you still causing trouble?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Who is causing trouble?" I responded coldly, "You'd better wait for a court summons." He shouted back, "You really want a divorce? Let me tell you, I won't agree to it. If you want to leave, the house and the 2 girls are mine. You'll leave with nothing." I didn't bother responding and ended the call immediately. I had never gone through a legal process before and didn't even know how to begin. When I asked people around me for advice, almost no one was willing to support me. They all urged me to give up. "Your relationship has been fine all these years and you've never had serious arguments. Why would you suddenly want a divorce?" I had always believed that a family's private matters shouldn't be shared with outsiders. Talking about it would only bring shame. So, even though I resented Jacob deeply, I had never confided in anyone. I kept his dignity intact in front of others. Maybe small arguments could be settled through compromise. There was no need to take it this far. And we were both over 50. Divorce at our age. What would we do when we got old? If you don't divorce, at least someone will be there to take care of you when you're sick. When I heard this, my resolve to divorce became even stronger. If Jacob truly cared for me, how could he let me reach the point where I wanted to leave? So I consulted a lawyer to understand the divorce process. He advised me, "Your divorce might not be as simple as you think. Your husband doesn't have an affair, isn't addicted to gambling, doesn't drink or smoke, and has no history of domestic violence. Frankly, he's almost perfect in terms of flaws. You mentioned his neglect of the family and reluctance to spend money, but he does try to support the family with what he earns. Even if it's not much, it's still his responsibility. Also, your relationship isn't exactly broken. You've been helping him pay off the car loan for the past 5 years. If you really go to court, the judge may not rule in your favor. I suggest you have a serious talk with him. If you can reconcile, great. If not, encourage him to agree to a divorce by mutual consent. It'll be much easier." Walking out of the lawyer's office, I felt a wave of helplessness. Divorce didn't seem as simple as I had imagined. But staying married, the sense of injustice only grew stronger. That night I stayed at a motel. If I had still been wavering about the divorce the day before, now my decision was firm. This marriage had to end. I couldn't bear to stay in it any longer. The next morning I woke up feeling heavy-headed with a stuffy nose. I had caught a cold. But at least I didn't have to worry about feeding the family anymore. I didn't have to get up early to cook for everyone, nor rush to prepare lunch after breakfast. Even when I had a severe cold in the past, these daily tasks were still my responsibility. But now I could finally sleep in without a care. The phone rang, interrupting my peace. It was Jacob calling. I chose not to answer. Then Claire called. I picked up. What's going on? My voice was stuffed up and Claire must have noticed, but she didn't ask about my cold. Instead, she simply asked, "Aren't you coming back? What are we having for lunch?" I said, "Whatever you want." Jacob's angry voice came through. "Tell your mom if she wants to come back, she better get in here and cook. If she doesn't, don't bother coming back." I hung up without a second thought. A whole week went by without a single call or message. As my cold began to ease, the end of the holiday brought a sense of unease. Claire was about to go back to school, and I usually gave her money for living expenses at this time. This week her dad would probably give it to her. I wondered how was she doing with her packing. Claire always procrastinated. If I didn't remind her, she'd waste the whole day and leave for school when it was dark, which wasn't safe. Lily had been distracted with her homework, and I couldn't stop worrying about her assignments while I wasn't home. I couldn't help but want to check on them. But when I saw that I hadn't received any messages, my frustration flared up again. In the end, I still didn't go back. As evening approached, Claire called again, her tone as though she expected it. "Mom, hurry and send me the living expenses." I felt a pang of frustration. I don't have a job. I don't have any income. How could I have money to send you? Your dad makes all that money. Why don't you ask him? Her reply was quick. Dad's money is tied up in loan payments. Loan payments? I asked, confused. I don't know, just send it quickly, I need to catch a bus. I said firmly, I really don't have the money to give you. She snapped, then go work. You can't just keep relying on Dad all the time. The anger in my chest exploded. I've spent 6 years raising you with your father and then 10 more years alone. Isn't that enough? From now on, let your dad take care of you. I don't owe you anything. I hung up, the anger still burning inside me. Jacob called right after. Emily, you've been gone for so long. Don't you think it's time to stop? Why are you still making a fuss? I couldn't help but laugh. Who is making a fuss? I responded coldly, you'd better wait for a court summons. He shouted back, you really want a divorce? Let me tell you, I won't agree to it. If you want to leave, the house and the 2 girls are mine. You'll leave with nothing. I didn't bother responding and ended the call immediately. I had never gone through a legal process before and didn't even know how to begin. When I asked people around me for advice, almost no one was willing to support me. They all urged me to give up. Your relationship has been fine all these years and you've never had serious arguments. Why would you suddenly want a divorce? I had always believed that a family's private matters shouldn't be shared with outsiders. Talking about it would only bring shame. So, even though I resented Jacob deeply, I had never confided in anyone. I kept his dignity intact in front of others. Maybe small arguments could be settled through compromise. There was no need to take it this far. And we were both over 50. Divorce at our age. What would we do when we got old? If you don't divorce, at least someone will be there to take care of you when you're sick. When I heard this, my resolve to divorce became even stronger. If Jacob truly cared for me, how could he let me reach the point where I wanted to leave? So I consulted a lawyer to understand the divorce process. He advised me, your divorce might not be as simple as you think. Your husband doesn't have an affair, isn't addicted to gambling, doesn't drink or smoke, and has no history of domestic violence. Frankly, he's almost perfect in terms of flaws. You mentioned his neglect of the family and reluctance to spend money, but he does try to support the family with what he earns. Even if it's not much, it's still his responsibility. Also, your relationship isn't exactly broken. You've been helping him pay off the car loan for the past 5 years. If you really go to court, the judge may not rule in your favor. I suggest you have a serious talk with him. If you can reconcile, great. If not, encourage him to agree to a divorce by mutual consent. It'll be much easier. Walking out of the lawyer's office, I felt a wave of helplessness. Divorce didn't seem as simple as I had imagined. But staying married, the sense of injustice only grew stronger. That evening, I returned to the familiar home, only to find it covered in dust. The two girls immediately began to clean up. Memories from the past flooded my mind. Years ago I used to bustle around in the kitchen while the whole family sat on the couch, eagerly waiting for my cooking. Back then I would ask them to help serve the dishes, but the two little ones would always throw tantrums. The idea of helping never crossed their minds. Just then Jacob walked in. As soon as they saw him, the girls shouted, "Dad's home." I couldn't bring myself to care. He walked up to me then said, "Emily, you've been doing well, huh? You look a lot better than before." I replied, "Not just well, I'm doing great now. Even washing dishes feels like earning a paycheck." He looked uncomfortable, staying silent for a moment before changing the subject. I sold the car. After paying off the loan, the remaining money went straight to the girls' tuition. I couldn't help but sneer internally. He had never cared about paying for their tuition before, but now he had to sell his car to make it work. I certainly wouldn't be paying it. A little while later he said, "Emily, let's get back together." I stared at him confused. "You already have a wife. Why would we get back together?" He responded, "I'm not married. We broke up. She left because I didn't have a house. She wanted to steal the money I got from selling the car." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. On the outside he was always generous, but at home he was so petty. It was clear, he had treated that woman like a friend, generous with her. But now that he wanted to be with her, he had become so miserly. Honestly, she was clearly smarter than me. The moment she realized things weren't going well, she chose to break up. And I had been foolishly stuck in this marriage for over 10 years. Meanwhile, the two girls ran over to me trying to persuade me. "Mom, you and Dad should get back together. He has nowhere to stay tonight." "Yeah. If you two get back together, the four of us can be a family again. Grandma has nowhere to go either. That old man's kids kicked her out. It's so sad." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly, thinking, so that's what you wanted when you asked me to come home for the holidays, just an excuse to get me to reconcile with him. Claire frowned, saying, "We're doing this for your own good. If you and Dad get back together, you won't have to suffer outside anymore. You can work together, help each other out. Isn't that great?" Lily added, "Yeah, my classmates know Mom's a maid and they joke about it. It's really embarrassing." I responded to Claire, "I'm not ashamed of my job. The people I work for are polite and they've never made me feel uncomfortable. You know, the real humiliation has been in this house. You, Dad, Grandma, and you too. Every day you make me feel miserable. I've been so angry, I felt pain in my chest so bad I couldn't speak. Have you ever thought about me? I've almost died a few times. Did you know that? Ever since I started working as a maid, my depression has gotten better. So honestly, I'm relieved that I divorced your dad. I finally got away from all of you." I turned to Lily asking, "Do you think I should be ashamed of being a maid? Well then, don't mention your mom's a maid to your classmates. I worked as a maid for over 10 years for you both and you never thought it was embarrassing. Now all of a sudden it's a disgrace. From now on, when those people laugh at you, tell them your maid mom is no longer around. You can say your new mom lives in a fancy apartment, gives you $10,000 a month for living expenses. Do whatever you need to satisfy your vanity. Say whatever you want." The two girls stood there speechless. I grabbed my bag, preparing to leave. I turned back and said, "You can keep living in this house. I'll continue to send you money for your living expenses, but only enough to cover the basics. After all, I'm just a useless mother who can only be a maid. I can't earn a lot of money. From now on, don't call me for anything. Once you've finished your college degrees, this will be the end of our relationship. This house belongs to me and no one can sell it. I will come back to retire here. At least I'll have somewhere to live. I don't expect my two daughters to take care of me in my old age. I doubt they'll be able to. So I have to plan for myself." I stepped out of the house. Jacob followed me. As I reached the door, he said, "Don't be mad at the girls. They're only thinking about us." I turned and looked at him. This face, which had seemed so familiar, now appeared older with every passing year. I was aging backward while he was truly growing old. I responded coldly, "Don't talk to me about them. They never cared about me. They're only looking out for you." I thought to myself, maybe years from now when my daughters become mothers themselves, they'll finally understand my pain. But by then, will they have the chance to make up for it? I've lived 50 years and 40 of them have been spent living for others. Before marriage, I worked for my parents and brother. After marriage, I gave everything to my husband, daughters, and mother-in-law. Only these past 3 years have I lived for myself. If it weren't for their behavior, I might have given my all to this family. It was because of them that I felt hopeless and chose to leave. Fortunately, I still have decades ahead of me and the road ahead is not unclear.